Hello there, you join us live here for the launch of 3 satellites tonight from the Arianespace Center, which is in South America. We've got 2 telecommunications satellites waiting on the pad and also 1 mission extension vehicle. Now, if you're a bit curious to know what that is, then you're in the right place, because we're going to be finding out about the satellites tonight in the next hour. We'll also be watching the launch, of course, and we'll be following their journey through space. We've got lots of experts lined up for you tonight, and one of them is this man, Stefan Israel.
Hello.
Stefan, thanks for joining us. Stefan is the CEO of Arianespace, and which makes you perfect place to tell us about what's happening tonight. Stefan, first of all, let's take a look. We can see on our screens the launcher is on the pad, looking pretty good there. We've got a few clouds in the sky, though, tonight, haven't we?
Yes, but the launcher is on the launch pad. It has been transferred yesterday. Everything is okay. We are now making the final operations, and as always, we are going to monitor the weather and to check the clouds, yes.
So we've got 3 customers tonight, and, sorry, 2 customers, but 3 satellites. So tell us about that.
Yes, so tonight we have Intelsat with Galaxy 30, and you know Intelsat is a very long-lasting friend of Arianespace. The first Intelsat satellite was launched in 1983, and tonight we are launching the 62nd satellite for Intelsat. We have another very old friend, which is BSAT, a Japanese operator. This will be the 10th satellite we will launch tonight for BSAT, and our relationship has started in 1997. And we have a newcomer, Space Logistics LLC, which is a subsidiary of Northrop Grumman. Northrop Grumman has built MEV-2 and in the Galaxy 30. Maxar has built the satellite of the Japanese operator. And this is a new vehicle tonight because this is a mission extension vehicle for in-orbit servicing. So we are very happy of this innovative mission.
It's exciting, isn't it?
Very exciting.
So we'll be finding out more about it later in the program. But let's just talk about the situation we're in at the moment. Obviously, it's very complex, launching satellites during a global pandemic.
Yes, for sure. So you know that we are now in the context of a pandemic of the COVID, which is in all South America. And it is clear that this is the case in Guyana. We have taken all health measures to make sure that all our teams, the teams of our partners, of our customers, are working by respecting very strictly the new health conditions. And this is the case tonight in Guyana. And I really want to thank the team for the fact that they have delivered in such a difficult situation.
And of course, our thoughts and our support to everybody
yes.
in French Guiana who's struggling with this right now. Let's just go back to Ariane 5, our launch vehicle, because she's incredibly powerful. You launched several launches from the spaceport. She's the most powerful one, and she's becoming even more powerful, isn't she? Yes,
tonight it is the most powerful Ariane 5 we have ever launched. We have a capability of 10.2 tons for the satellites, and it is due to a program we have made with our parent company and prime contractor Ariane Group. Since 2016, we have increased by 300 kilos the performance for the satellite by diminishing the mass of the launcher. So tonight it is the most powerful Ariane which will fly.
Well, that's good to know. Well, Stefan normally is with us in French Guiana, heading up a very important group of people called the Flight Directorate. But of course, we're here in Paris, and Stefan, we're lucky to have you with us, actually. But we can go over, let's hope now, to the Guyana Space Center, because tonight Luce Fabregat is there, heading up the Flight Directorate. Luce, what is the Flight Directorate?
Hello, Katie. Yes, very pleased to welcome you inside the mission center at the flight desk, as you said. There are 4 of us tonight here, and we will have the final say for the go-to launch. With me, Roland Lagier, who is our CTO at Arianespace, the highest technical authority for tonight's launch. Bruno Gérard, who is heading Arianespace teams here in French Guiana, fully connected with local authorities tonight, and on communication aspects with us, Martin Studer.
So Luce, tell us about the situation in the Jupiter cell, and how are the things going now for you?
So as you can see, the situation is very smooth for the time being. Everybody in front of its computers. We need, you know, Stefan, we need 3 components to make a launch, the satellites, and the customers are in front of us, ready to go. We need the launch range, of course, and the downrange stations also under the authority of CNES behind me, ready to go also, and to support the launch, and of course the launch vehicle and its ground segment. And today, tonight, everybody is ready to go.
That's good to hear, Luce. I know that everybody is also being very conscientious about social distancing.
Yes, we have taken, it was a very specific campaign. We have taken very specific measures, distancing. We all wear masks, and that was the way to avoid and to strictly limit the spread of the virus, of course. And it works. It has been working quite well. So today of course we have been during the whole campaign for a few months. The whole space community has been very supportive of all the efforts performed by the people here in French Guiana. And tonight we think about the people here in French Guiana who have been touched by this virus, and we want to tell them Chamberet Pamoli in Creole, you know Katie perfectly. So keep up, don't give up, keep up with all the measures. We need them, and we are convinced today the Ariane launcher will bring all its power to French Guyanese people.
Luce, thank you very, very much indeed for joining us, and best wishes now for the rest of the launch. Stefan, you're going to be coming back to us again later, but yes, for now, thank you very much.
Thanks a lot.
Stefan Israel, ladies and gentlemen. Well, I promised you some experts, and we also have Damien Gilles with us tonight. Damien Gilles is Head of Systems Engineering. Very briefly, what does that mean?
I'm leading a short team of experienced system engineers who are in charge of mission conception for all the launcher of Arianespace family, and mission design mainly covers trajectory and ballistic phase optimization, as well as demonstrations that the spacecraft can sustain the condition of a launch.
Great. Well, thank you very much indeed for joining us. Let's take a seat. And Damien's going to be with us now for pretty well the rest of the program. We have been preparing the satellites and the launcher for the last 3 months or so. It's called the launch campaign, started with the assembly of the launcher. What happened next?
Galaxy 30 and MEV2 landed at Cayenne Airport end of June. They were transferred then to the payload preparation facility 72 kilometers away. They started there their standalone activities. In parallel, our lower passenger VA253 arrived in Cayenne and followed the same path until the same building, which is S5C, where it also started its standalone activity. You can see there on the images the feed check. Feed check is the operation where we check that we can attach the spacecraft to its nearby structure without any anomaly. After that, the 2 passengers were transferred to the hazardous payload processing facility, where they will be filled with propellant. You can see there people wearing specific suits because of the dangerousness of the activity. In parallel, VA253 was also filled with propellant in another building called S4. After filling, the operation is what we call flight mating. It means that we attach the spacecraft onto its adapter. After flight mating, we can transfer the spacecraft from the payload processing facility to the building where it will meet the launcher upper part structures. For that, we use the dedicated container. MEV2 was hoisted on top of the Silda mid-July. As you know, the particularity of the mission is that we have 2 upper passengers. So Galaxy 30 followed the same path as MEV2 before being integrated on top of MEV2 the same day. The upper stack being prepared, we then encapsulated the upper stack with the ferry. In parallel, VA253 was also prepared for flight. It started with the flight mating of VA253 onto its adapter, and then we have to transfer VSAT-4B to the back building where it will meet the launcher. You can see there the hoisting operation of VSAT-4B onto the launcher. On that picture, you can also see the new vehicle equipment bay, which is a new item which will fly for this mission, and VSAT-4B was mated on. Once both parts were prepared, we can make the integration of the composite onto the launcher. Now the upper part is complete.
Well, thanks for talking us through that. Now, as we well know, there are lots of things we can control on a rocket launch. A very, very controlled environment. But there's one thing we can't control, and that's nature. So we have a couple of weather checks, one at 20 minutes to launch and one at 10 minutes to launch. Let's go over now to Bruno, who we saw earlier in the Mission Control Center next to Luce. And Bruno, can you hear me? Great. Bruno can hear me, I think. Bruno,
I hear you.
Great. We've had the latest 20-minute weather check, haven't we, Bruno? What's the situation?
So the situation is not bad. We got the information, so we have some clouds above us, but it seems okay on the lightning's problem. Winds are correct, so for up to now, we seem to have a green. This green will be confirmed at -10 minutes.
And Bruno, what's the weather like at the moment in French Guiana? I believe we're coming out of the raining season, is that right?
Yes, absolutely, Cathy. We just are going outside of the rainy season and entering the dry season. So the weather is quite changing, evolving, but up to now, it seems very good for this evening.
Bruno, what kind of conditions could delay a launch?
In fact, we have many factors. First one, of course, the winds, low altitude winds, high altitude winds, but also we have, like any airplane, the conditions about lightnings. We don't like to enter big storms. So we check all the weather above the launch pad, but remember that in 2 minutes we are outside of the atmosphere.
Great. Well, thank you very much indeed, Bruno. We'll await the weather check at 10 minutes too, but for the moment, best wishes for the rest of the countdown. Thank you, Bruno. So we are flying on board Ariane 5, as we've said, the big, powerful beast of a launcher, the heavy lifter of the Ariane family. We have 3 launches that we launch here. She's going to take off in just under She's going to take just under an hour to deliver our satellites. And so let's just have a look now at what's going to happen once she lifts off and how she's going to do that.
The booster ignition will trigger the liftoff of the launch vehicle. Shortly after the liftoff, the launcher will perform a pitch maneuver in order to get in the right direction. The booster separation will occur slightly more than 2 minutes after liftoff. Just after, we will separate the fairing as well. The main engine switches off when the intermediate orbit is reached. This event is called injection into orbit. Just after, the main stage is separated and will fall down into the Atlantic Ocean. The upper stage is ignited and it will carry our passengers up to the geostationary transfer orbit. During that flight, we have still the effect of the atmosphere, even if thin, because we fly very fast. This is the aerothermal flux. Upper stage switches off when we have reached the orbit. This is the beginning of the ballistic phase when we can separate all the spacecraft. First of all, Galaxy 30, then MEV2 separation. Before separating the VSAT-4B, we separate the sealed. And finally, VSAT-4B, our last passenger. The launch vehicle mission is not completed yet because it will start the passivation. After that moment, the Mission Control Center team will take over and the spacecraft team will make all the job to get the satellite to their final journey.
Indeed, and of course, Galaxy 30 and VSAT-4B will travel on their own to their final destination, which they have their own slot in space, and they'll be going to that slot. But MEV2 is different, isn't it?
Completely different, because it will dock to another satellite, which is a customer of MEV2 to extend its lifetime.
So it's actually going to dock with another satellite, and then it's going to push it a little bit, use its own thrusters, and raise its orbit.
All the maneuvers, yeah.
Yeah, it's really, really exciting technology. Now, we have two control centres working on the launch over in French Guiana. We've got the Mission Control Centre, which we've been looking at. But we also have another one. It's called Launch Control, and it's closer to the pad. It's about, I think, about 3 kilometres away. There it is. It's actually a concrete blockhouse, isn't it, Damien?
Yes, it is, and it is completely airtight at the end of the chronology in order to protect the people. We have there basically two teams. One, which is the operational team who is responsible for the final operation before liftoff, and another one with the flight worthiness team who is in charge of checking the flight worthiness and last status of the launcher. This latest team is led by Guillaume Galato, the LSTO, whereas the operational team was led by the LCOM, Patrick Lucet, that we have seen at the beginning of the movie. And you can see here people working inside the CDL.
So that's the Launch Control Centre there in French Guiana, but there is actually another one in France, in Europe, and it's called Space Code. It's an exact replica, so all the launch controllers in Europe can see exactly what the launch controllers can see in French Guiana. Let's find out a little bit more now about how it works and the reasons for it.
Welcome to all of you in our Space Code room in Les Mureaux, close to Paris. This is one of the rooms which is in place for each of our Ariane 5 launches, where we have operators preparing launch during the day of the countdown, as it is the case today. When we prepare a launch, as we are doing now, we have in fact two teams which are working together. There is one team which is fully in Guyana, in the range of 50 to 60 people, who are actually operating the ground system equipment that work with the launcher, that feed the launcher with electricity, that feed the launcher with fuel, with propellant, and so on. And these are the people that activate equipment on board of the launcher. And there is a second team which is in place, and this second team is in charge of supervising the status of the launcher. This second team is in charge of checking each and every parameter on board of the launcher during the operations conducted by the other team. This second team, in fact, is divided in two parts. There is one part of that team which is now in Guyana, and a second part which is here in Les Mureaux. The first half of the team, the second half of the team are working together on the same displays. They have exactly the same setup of displays to monitor launch. The difference between the two teams is that the people who are staying in Kourou for supervising the launcher from them, in fact, these people have more frequently a need to interact with the people operating the launcher. So the supervisors talking to the operators of the launcher. Here in Les Mureaux, the people who are here with us today are more looking at parameters of the launchers that will not require a direct intervention by the operators, but that may require a work together with a third team, which is a team of experts that are put at their disposal in another room in the CALM, and these experts will be called by the supervision team here in Les Mureaux, should there be at any point in time in the chronology, should there be an anomaly, a singularity, something which is to be checked by technical specialists.
So, hello everybody, I'm very pleased to be here with you in Les Mureaux premises. We are in a room where all the launcher technical leader will be for the chronology. We are in charge here to prepare the chronology in the Space Code rooms, so meaning with the preparation of an organization note where we gather all the people, the key people who are involved in this chronology. So, and during the chronology, we have also to ensure that all people are well positioned, and we have to ensure that all the communication with Kourou are correct. In case of a specific technical event or anomaly, of course, in the position of LSTM here in Les Mureaux, we have to alert everybody so that we can then work together and, of course, provide support to our colleagues who are also in Kourou dealing with this technical event.
Interesting, huh?
Completely, yes.
Two complete replicas. So the final countdown started about 11 hours ago. We're now 8 minutes and 37 seconds to launch, getting towards the end of that final countdown. What's been happening?
The teams have been completing the operation since this morning. Mainly the operation were checking the electrical connection between the different elements, flushing and cooling the feeding lines so that we can fill the tanks with propellant, activating the equipment on board the launcher, one after the other, to check the status. And we are doing this in order to be able to check that everything is working perfectly before we enter the synchronized sequence.
And here we can see the teams in French Guiana, the program director's desk. What are these guys doing? And there's the Jean-Christophe Delaunay, who is the
mission director.
And we can see here the status panels, and this is the range operations manager.
Yes. The range operation manager is the one that is coordinating all the activities on the basis and which receives all the information from different elements.
And he's the one who's going to be calling out all the important milestones, because, of course, there are lots of buildings across the base, yes. And everybody has to listen to the range operations manager to get confirmations of the main events. He's about to call one out now.
À tous de DDO, attention pour la séquence finale lanceur.
So he has announced the beginning of the synchronized sequence. It's the last 7 minutes in the countdown. And this is the time now when really the computers are starting to take on the job, aren't they, Damien? What's happening?
The synchronized sequence is a sequence which is fully automatized, which performs the latest preparation operation of the launcher and of the ground, and the launcher is taken progressively autonomous, independent from the ground.
We can see in the Mission Control Center those boards that you're looking at on the left side, the green panels. We call those the status panels, and all the systems across the base are sending their status there.
Yes, we have a panel made of all elements that are green up to now. These elements correspond to subsystems which send their status. So mainly we need the launcher, which will send its status. We need a go also from the customers, which will send their status. And finally, the launch base. Everything is like a traffic light. If it's green, it's a go. If it's red, we have to stop, investigate.
Exactly, or it's a little bit like the dashboard of a car, same thing. Now, we are now joined by Raphael Chevrier as well, who has come to see us here in the studio. Raphael, thank you very much indeed for being with us. You tell us your job and what you do, Raphael, for Arianespace.
Basically, I'm a business developer. So with my colleagues, we are working on innovative mission concepts that we can address with our generation of launch vehicle, Ariane 6 and Vega C, in the context of a very fast-changing satellite market.
And it is changing extremely fast, isn't it? Because, of course, everybody's, well, certainly, I think probably in March I had never heard of Zoom, and now I use the word like Google. Let's Google something and we Zoom it in English. I don't know whether in French you do the same thing. So things are changing. We all want more internet.
Yeah, there is Zoom, there is WebEx, so there is a real big demand in this dramatic situation of connectivity for situations of remote working. And so we know, and it confirms that the satellite have like a role to play in this communication, providing through large projects of constellations, internet signals in order to connect everybody anywhere.
And right now we've got some very important satellites up there inside the fairing, which are going to help us to do that and make those connections. What are the conditions like inside the fairing? I'm guessing that they're kind of like first class in an aeroplane,
yes, we can
air conditioning and that sort of thing.
The fairing here protects the satellite from the outside environment, we can say. First, we monitor the temperature inside the cavity, and we also check the conditions in terms of humidity and cleanliness for it to be perfect before liftoff.
So right now they've got their seatbelts on.
And everything is ready for
waiting
liftoff.
for liftoff.
Cross fingers.
Yeah. And the cabin crew are doing the final checks. So we have a number of things to watch out for before we come up to the launch. We are right now 3 minutes and 22 seconds. If we take a look at our launcher on the pad, if we have an image of that, we can see the skies looking pretty reasonably clear. Earlier it was looking a little bit cloudy, but actually the clouds seem to be parting. It's 6 o'clock coming up to 6 o'clock coming up to 6:30 in the evening in French Guiana. Just remind you that French Guiana is on the Amazon, in the Amazon rainforest.
Yes,
what kind
it is
of
close to
temperatures?
the equator, so we have a specific weather there.
And I'm guessing, Raphael, right now is the time when the mosquitoes come out over there.
Yeah, I haven't spent so much time in French Guiana, but yeah, it's quite strong situations, weather conditions there. But we are very lucky in French Guiana because we are not experiencing, and it's very important for launches, tornadoes and this kind of weather conditions that could be very, very game changer for those kind of launch activities.
Getting close now, up to 2 minutes to launch. Let's talk about some of the activities that we see before a launch. We will count to 7 once we see the ignition. And before we talk about that, look, we're seeing here the cryogenic arms. The cryogenic arms are feeding liquid hydrogen and oxygen into the vehicle. What kind of temperatures are we talking about? Very cold.
The temperatures are really cold because for the liquid hydrogen, the temperature is minus 153 degrees, whereas for the liquid oxygen,
Arrêt
it's
du
a bit
décompte,
warmer.
chute un rouge, ensemble de lancement. Que tous les moyens restent prêts à la reprise de la chronologie à 0-7 minutes en cas de retour au vert.
Okay, so we've just heard from the Range Operations Manager that we'll translate that, and Damien will translate that for us. But we have a red status panel. As you remember, Damien was just explaining to us that the traffic lights are red for stop, green for go. We have a red status panel. That means that we need to stop. Damien, just to talk us through what the Range Operations Manager just said.
This red corresponds to a red coming from the launch base. However, everybody is still keeping ready in order to restart the activities when the issue will be solved. This situation is completely nominal because the aim of this kind of check is to check everything before we go for liftoff. So we are currently treating this anomaly, and we will come back when we will have more information about that.
So the chronology is continuing for the moment, the chronology, or what we call in English the countdown. And as you say, Damien, the system is absolutely made for this. So red status panel is a perfectly normal thing to happen because it's flagging up a glitch that we need to fix. And once we can get that sorted out, then hopefully we'll be able to launch. Now, we have the status panels. Let's just see whether we can have another closer look at our status panels so that we can have a look and see the red status panel that has turned red. Yeah, no, maybe we can't see that right now, but I'm sure we will in just 1 second. So we have a launch window tonight, quite a comfortable launch window. For anyone who's unfamiliar with a launch window is the time during which we can launch. So our time was roughly 11:30 for launch tonight, Paris time, and Central European time, 10:30. But we have, how long is our launch window, and what does that actually mean?
The launch window for today is slightly more than 40 minutes. It corresponds to the period during which we can launch without still fulfilling all requirements, if it comes from the overall system requirements or requirements coming from the customer. Because based on the launch hour, there can be different constraints of illumination, of energy on the solar panels for the spacecraft after separations. So we are putting all these constraints together in order to build what we call the launch window, which is the time during which we fulfill all the constraints for the customer from the launch base and from the launcher. And for today, it's more than 40 minutes. So we have still time in order to be ready for liftoff later on.
And what's everybody doing now? Because as you remember, we've got the several different control centres. We've got the Mission Control Centre, which we've been looking at, the nerve centre really, where Luce and Bruno are sitting and the other teams. We also saw the Launch Control Centre, where the teams are concerned primarily with the launch vehicle and the launch pad. What's everybody doing now in a situation like this?
Depending on the issue that is being treated, of course, but all the teams that are involved in the technical field covered by the issue or the points to be resolved is working currently on the topic with the help of all technical teams which are located in Europe or directly in French Guiana in order to help solving the issue as quick as possible. And one other important point for this mission is we spoke about the launch window, but we have quite a kind of particularity for this mission because the launch window is split into two sub-launch windows because we check, of course, all constraints, as I told you, and one of the constraints that we have to check is that we have no risk of collision with the ISS, which is a really important
Yes, so
criterion.
let's just talk about that in a little bit more detail. Maybe you could explain to us what the ISS actually is, the International Space Station.
International Space Station is like one of the major projects that's been built in space, and it actually is a good example of cooperation in space. There are lots of space agencies, national agencies that are implicated there. And of course, you know that our national hero, Thomas Pesquet, went there once, and he will go back there.
I'm just going to remind everybody that Thomas Pesquet is the French astronaut who lifted off to the International Space Station 2 years ago?
About 2 years ago.
About 2 years ago.
Yeah.
And just a quick interlude, because I was actually doing the commentary during that launch, and it was a very wonderful moment when Thomas Pesquet opened the hatch and flew into the space station, because I was in the Mission Control Center in Moscow, and Thomas's mother was in the control center, and of course, understandably, she wept, and I think we all wanted to weep because she felt so proud of her son floating into the space station. So that was a very, very wonderful moment. Yes, just continue what you were saying.
Yeah, and right there, basically, we are testing a lot of things, technologies in space. I want to remind that the International Space Station is within the area where the magnetic field of the Earth is still protecting astronauts from radiations from space. So it's quite like a safe place to work there. And so you can test technologies, you can run very complex experiments, and especially experiment in zero gravity conditions. So it's very you do some repair of the station. The station has been growing more and more with the time. And so, yeah, there are lots of stuff that are happening there. And the International Space Station is going to be running for a few more years. And then the national agencies are right now thinking of a way to continue this kind of cooperation. And the main idea right now for them is to actually do an International Space Station around the moon. So the challenges are much more strong and difficult because there you don't have the magnetic field of the Earth to protect the astronauts. So you have to test strong technologies to protect from the radiations from space, etc. It's like 380,000 kilometers from Earth the moon. So it's a much longer way to go there. So it's a very, very exciting space decade that's coming.
It's huge, isn't it? It's absolutely remarkable, and you guys are involved in it, and it is very exciting. Now, I think we're going to take a break. The countdown is on hold, as we've said. We have a launch window, so we're going to wait now and come off air just for a while and get a little bit more information, and we'll come back to you. In the meantime, do keep your eye on the website, arianespace.com, and we'll come back to you when we have more information. But for now, see you shortly.
Hello, Mr. Mahmoud. Please introduce yourself and your role during this mission. What was the part that you played a major role in?
Yes, good morning to everyone. My name is Mahmoud Al-Awali. I am the mechanical subsystem lead. My role in this mission was to design the structure of EMM, Emirates Mars Mission Probe. And it was a very exciting and challenging. We've learned a lot from this mission. And we've also started with this project by seeing it with the small parts, and then we assembled all of the parts together. And now, as you can see, the spacecraft, the EMM, is in the launch pad. Hopefully, we have a successful launch.
What is your feeling on this? What is your feeling on this morning?
Yes, it's a very proud moment. It's very hard to express my feelings, as we've been working now for almost 6 years on this project. It's a very proud moment.
Thank you very much. How is the spirit of the team? Are you nervous? Are you?
So we are optimistic, and the team are also, of course, nervous. We are waiting, hopefully, for a successful launch, and then also for the first contact with the spacecraft. So hopefully, we are always optimistic, and inshallah, we have a successful launch, and we have a good approach up to Mars within 7 months.
We know that. After the launch, you will receive a successful. But before that, the missile, the rocket has to go through all the layers of the atmosphere, and during this period, the element that caused the postponement, the element of the weather, we will know for sure that it affected or did not affect the rocket. So, what are your feelings about that, and how are you going to follow the element of the weather?
So, as you mentioned, we've been focusing a lot on measuring the weather these days. So every day we've been looking at the weather twice. And this early morning, again, it seems a go for a launch. And hopefully the weather won't affect any of our launch process.
When was the moment when you felt that it's going to happen?
This morning, when they confirmed that they did the last weather check, when they confirmed that the weather is okay for a go launch, it's a much relief.
Okay, thank you so much, and best of luck to you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you. Thank you very much, and back to you at the studio.
Thank you very much, Najib. Of course, once that rocket launches, the thrusters burning the hydrogen rocket fuel are going to be brighter than the sun that is preventing you from taking a shot right now. But we're going to bring it back to you very soon, don't we, Ray?
Absolutely. I think one of the things that I most got from that was how from the team is and how excited they are. Fahad, I mean, it's quite inspirational, really.
No, I mean, I think they did actually a quick average and looked at it. I think they came down to around 27 years old was about the average, age of the team. So you can think that, what that does for the generation today and what that does for the country. I mean, the UAE is pushing for a knowledge-based industry, and how best to do it than really push and invest in the generation. We're so blessed in this country that we have leadership like Mohammed bin Rashid and His Highness Sheikh Mohammed bin Zayed, who, really acknowledge and understand the investment in people, in education. They see that as no loss at all, and that was, the message that was given by His Excellency Ahmed Al-Hol, where, they had an inspirational meeting, with both His Highnesses, and the message that was relayed was phenomenal, basically saying that the mission is done, it's been accomplished. Sending the probe to Mars, it's really about the 5.5 million hours of UAE engineer put time, dedication, sweat and blood into this project. Absolutely. That is the true success of this project right now.
Loads more to talk to you about on the programme this evening. Probe to Mars is extremely complicated, but the data that we hope to gain once we get there has the potential to be extraordinary. The first complete picture of Mars's seasonal atmospheric cycles.
Earlier today, I stepped into virtual at the Hope probe and its mission. So let's take a look. The UAE is on a mission to explore Mars, and through the Hope probe, it will become one of the handful of countries that have done so. Let's take a look at the details of this historical mission. The Hope probe will launch from the Mitsubishi station on the Japanese island of Tanegashima on board the Mitsubishi H-2A carrier rocket, just under 35,000 kilometers per hour. The journey from Earth to Mars will take approximately 7 months and coincide with the 50th anniversary of the founding of the United Arab Emirates. Now, in order for the probe to reach Mars before this historic date, it must launch within a short and specific time frame known as the launch window, which runs from the 15th of July to the 3rd of August. Now, the is because the Earth orbits the Sun faster than Mars. Sometimes it's ahead of it, and sometimes the two planets reach their closest point every 2 years. And that phenomenon is happening right now. Now, during its journey to Mars, the probe will travel 493 million kilometers at a speed of 121,000 kilometers. After the probe detaches from the missile, it opens its solar panels and turns toward the sun to charge its batteries and other solar-powered equipment. Now, the probe will need to change its position from time to time. Firstly, to recharge and also reorient its satellite towards the Earth to maintain contact with the operations team. The Hope probe uses a star tracker to find its location and direction. Upon reaching Mars, the speed of the probe will gradually slow down to 14,000 kilometers per hour. It will then enter a broad elliptical orbit around Mars before moving to a scientific orbit closer to the red planet. At that point, it will turn on its sensors and start collecting data estimated at 1,000 gigabytes that will be transmitted back to Earth. The probe sends the information to the Mohammed bin Rashid Space Center every 13 to 26 minutes. The probe mission will last for 1 Mars, which is equivalent to 687 Earth days. And after it settles in Mars orbit, the Hope probe will need just 55 hours to complete a full cycle around the red planet. At this point, the Hope probe's scientific begins to present the first comprehensive study of climate change on Mars.
Bom, gente, infelizmente eles decidiram adiar, não sei para que dia, mas vamos escutar o que ele está falando.
And it will do that, tracking the behavior and the path of the exit of both hydrogen and oxygen atoms. The Hope probe will also investigate the relationship between lower and upper atmosphere on Mars and provide the first and most detailed images of changes to the Martian atmosphere throughout the days and seasons of the Martian year. But that's not all. The Hope probe will also on the surface of Mars, such as dust storms and temperature changes. Now, why is the exploration of Mars and its climate important to humanity? In Mars, we can find the most important secrets to the climate changes we are experiencing here on Earth, and understanding what happened to the red planet. It will help us to avoid the same things happening to it. Now, here is one of the biggest questions facing the human race right now. Could humans live on Mars one day? None of the Mars probes or vehicles have definitely answered this important question. Comparison between Earth and Mars may give a clear picture. Now, in its geographical appearance, Mars is somewhat similar to its neighbor Earth, as it is also a rocky planet. The surface gravity is about 38% compared to Earth. And while from space the Earth appears to be blue and green, Mars, as we can see, is reddish-orange color. And this is caused by the presence of iron oxide atoms, rust in its soil. The dry canyons and valleys with steep slopes in its surface indicate a possible sign that water flowed at some point. Mars's air consists of 95% carbon dioxide, 3% nitrogen, and a small portion of and water. The surface